labor, community, students, faith, and occupy to call on closure of corporate tax loopholes, corporate tax reform, large-scale new effort to raise over $1 billion for this year's state budget. These are the same groups that worked together last year on the millionaire's tax. We're getting the band back together. We're going to all work together this year with the same kind of coordinated, layered, county by county, district by district, constituency by constituency group that turned Governor Cuomo around on his heels and made him see the value of tax fairness, that built a strong bipartisan coalition in the legislature in favor of tax fairness. In the same way that last year, Governor Cuomo and the legislature made a down payment on tax fairness by closing the most egregious gaps between the rich and the poor, and then asking the Tax Reform and Fairness Commission to look at a long-term approach. This year, we think the same thing should be done on corporate tax loopholes. We're going to hear first from labor leaders, Mario Cilento, the incoming president of the New York State AFL-CIO, Michael Mulgrew, the president of the United Federation of Teachers, Andy Pallotta, executive vice president of the New York State United Teachers, and Ken Brynan, president of the Public Employees Federation. All together.
Thank you very much, Michael. We have to look at long-term solutions that generate and stabilize revenue in this state so that we never again have to overcome a $10 billion budget deficit as we had to do last year. More importantly, have to overcome that deficit on the backs of working men and women, while corporate America enjoys and exploits corporate tax loopholes. For the last few years, every time we've talked about budget deficits and economic downturns, working men and women have had to sacrifice, while corporate America has pretty much gotten a free pass. It started a few years ago when private sector workers lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in their pension funds as a result of what had happened on Wall Street. There was no corporate accountability, so those workers had to sacrifice. But that wasn't enough. 2 years ago, we had a budget deficit in the state, and we were told that we need a new pension tier, Tier 5, even though there are no immediate cost savings. So again, this time, future workers had to sacrifice. But that wasn't enough. Last year, several unions agreed to contracts that called for wage freezes and an increase in health care costs. So now current workers had to sacrifice. But that wasn't enough. You see, it'll never, ever be enough if all we do is look towards cost cutting rather than ways to generate and stabilize revenue in the state. In this case, by closing corporate tax loopholes. Because if we close the loopholes, then we won't have to come back here year after year after year and fight back against proposed cuts in education and health care and infrastructure and all of the other vital services that we need in this state to live as New Yorkers. Now, I would just say that if we want to consider ourselves a progressive, enlightened society, then we have to come together, all of us, collectively in this state, and say that never again should workers who make $40,000 or $50,000 or even $60,000 a year ever have to sacrifice for future economic downturns while corporate America enjoys and exploits these corporate tax loopholes. I'll just give you a personal example. I have 3 children. They're 8, they're 6, and they're 20 months old. Now, at least for the older 2, my wife and I try to explain to them that every choice, every decision that they make has a consequence. Well, in this instance, when corporate America chooses to exploit these tax loopholes, there are consequences for our entire state, for our current workers, for our future workers, for our retirees, and for all of the citizens of the state who have to sacrifice while they've been getting a free pass all these years. That's why these loopholes have to be closed. They have to be closed now for the good of this state now and into the future. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Mulgrew. I'm the president of the United Federation of Teachers. I want to first thank everyone who's here. What you see here is groups of leaders from all different parts of advocacy. You see labor, you see community. And what we're asking for here is very reasonable. We're saying let's close these loopholes. And also, let's make sure that the deadbeat corporations actually start paying their taxes. It's a little ironic that we're sitting here still facing a deficit in our state when we have corporations inside of our state who haven't paid their taxes. Normal families, normal people who don't pay their taxes, they are contacted and then they start paying their taxes, or bad things start to happen to them. Well, I don't understand why certain corporations think it's fine if they don't pay their taxes and nobody's doing anything about it. We know we are still facing some tough economic times. What we're trying to say here is these things that are being offered today are reasonable solutions. Some of these loopholes are absurd. And the idea that we can just close some of these so that we can start increasing the revenue so that communities will not be hurt any longer. We know what has happened across this state. Our communities have been cut, and cut. And it's been very painful. Services across the board. Education, which obviously I'm very concerned about, but all other human services have been cut throughout this entire state. And it's just wrong. And it's not right. So that's why I'm very happy to be here today to say, let's close these corporate tax loopholes, and at the same time, let's get these corporations to start paying their taxes just like everybody else. Thank you very much.
Morning, everybody. I think it's fair to say that we started our new year in a pretty good way. Last year, we made some resolutions. Those resolutions, many of them were kept, many not. But this year, we make a resolution that we are going to make sure that the corporations pay their fair share. We had this outcry last year about high earners paying their fair share. This year, when we look at this chart and we get all choked up about how unfair things are, we just know that things need to change in this state. In his State of the State address, the governor said, I will change these things. I will set up a commission. We will attack corporate loopholes. We must do this. I taught for 24 years. The thing I always taught the children in my class was, we have to be fair. We have to make sure that they know that we are fighting for them in their future. Thank you.